Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. Well, I'm gonna leave out a lot of personal information,
Yeah, of
but
course.
I'm a hostage negotiator for the state of California, so not FBI. Um, and biggest thing was, as I was watching like your new direction that you're going, I noticed that there's probably a lot of our techniques that you could use, as
Hmm.
well as personally, I believe that it could be beneficial for us in the long run as society is changing, because most of our information is not up to date on a lot of things. We
Yeah, like
use a
what?
lot of
What about in
what
particular when you say that?
So basically, I notice a lot on when you talk to people,
Uh huh.
once they start to feel attacked by you,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of go into more like what looks to me like a crisis scenario where they become over emotional. They start to be purely about defending themselves on only an emotional level,
Mm-hmm.
and then a lot of the discourse goes nowhere,
Sure.
which it seems like it's kind of par for course for the Twitch debate scene because it's after that the circle jerk afterwards of communities.
Yeah, for sure.
But with the direction you want to go, I feel like, what was it? I've noticed you've said a lot of like you want to start acknowledging descriptive claims
Yeah.
that people make, but for what I see, it's more like acknowledging the emotional content behind it than the actual factual content.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things that we have to do is in a crisis scenarios we have to dig into the emotional content of what somebody's saying,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have to validate the emotional content while allowing time for emotions to settle down and start making a rational decision.
Mm-hmm.
uh where am I at?
How long have you been doing this as for your
Not
line of
long.
work? Not long. Okay.
Mine is not long, but I'm trying to, so ideally I'd be if I could help you with yours, that would help me with actual real life experience. Does that
Okay.
make sense? Yeah. Does that make sense at all? Or
Um, that the conversation might yield some beneficial truth that could help you in an actual crisis situation or something like that.
pretty much, yeah. So I'm seeing what I see is I see people who are going into crisis situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in a way, if I could help with those, calm them down, and get down to a better understanding,
Mm-hmm.
then that for me turns into experience for like real life scenarios.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Where did I put it at? A lot of what I've got right now is more research than practical application.
Sure. Have you? You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable. Have you been involved in any of these situations yet? Like, have you had to actually negotiate something in real life, or?
So now I'll be honest because that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what we do. I haven't. We just got done. Me and my group just got done with our training on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a little jealous because the other people that came in with me have already gotten some experience under their belt.
Sure. How often do these situations come up?
So not often, a handful of times a year. So that's why figuring out a way to train and be prepared for it is real important.
Yeah, because you don't get much on the field experience, I
Mm-mm.
imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's things that we go through and learn that are almost contradictory to some academia.
Uh huh.
So, like a big thing that a lot of crisis negotiators will deal with is suicidal subjects. So we'll have somebody inside who wants to kill themselves, and that makes it very hard to talk to because we have no leverage on somebody who wants to die. But
Well, I don't know if I'd
in
say that's true, but I understand what you mean. Yeah, that's a lot harder when you. Yeah.
yeah, so well, you have to. When I say leverage, I'm talking about like, say somebody's actually taking a hostage, or like what was it, like a month or two ago, where that guy robbed a bank,
Mm-hmm.
got surrounded, and turned into a hostage barricade situation.
Yeah.
There's a little more reason and leverage to talk to a negotiator when if you step outside, there's a bunch of guys with guns outside,
Sure. Yeah.
as opposed to when it's just you inside and you want to die.
Uh huh.
And if you talk to the negotiator, well, there's nothing compelling you to talk to us
Sure.
and
Yeah.
not take your own life.
Yeah. It
Other
seems like
than
the route to go there would be to try to guilt trip them. In regards to like if they have family or somebody still alive, I guess would be the yeah.
so you could call it a guilt trip, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more like you're trying to empathize with them and get to them on an emotional level. The big thing is telling somebody who's suicidal, getting them to realize that it's a permanent solution to a a short-term problem.
Yeah. Do you think that does that actually work with super suicidal people?
Yeah. So one of the things that actually bugged me,
Mhm.
what was that? One of your debates with one of the alt-right guys with super pro guns was talking about suicidal people.
Mhm.
You can't convince them not to commit suicide, and that's just statistically not true. For a lot of people, it has to do with ease of access. So if you look at, we don't have gas stoves anymore because a lot of women used to commit suicide by just carbon monoxide poisoning themselves.
Okay.
Law enforcement has a lot of suicide because a lot of law enforcement has access to guns. So when he was saying that people who want to kill themselves are just going to kill themselves, that's just simply not true. But yeah, any other questions you want to just go off on, or?
Not that I can think of, I guess. I'm trying to think if I have any questions related to like actual hostage negotiation. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know. I guess what are the what are like some similarities that you see, I guess, between some of the conversations I have versus what you do that you feel like there's like a decent amount of crossover between the two things?
Oh man. So I'm trying to find. I wrote down some notes so that I wouldn't be so lost, and now I can't find them.
No, that's fine. If you need to take a few minutes to go search whatever, that's fine too. There's no rush or anything. It's not like I want to super time.
Yeah. Let's see. Basically, kind of like quick examples would be where we go. That recent thing with Jenna when her stuff got revealed.
Yeah.
When you start having those people when they're no longer talking, listening to you,
Uh-huh.
and they're just purely trying to get across their point,
Yeah.
but there's an emotional context to their point. We define a crisis situation as when somebody's coping mechanisms, or the emotions have overwhelmed their coping mechanisms. And I feel like on Twitch, you get a lot of that because almost any piece of drama can be make or break you.
Yeah, for sure.
So you have an added level of stress to where that's kind of like ruining a career.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the unfortunate part of, tons of eyes on you, everything. And then it seems like, from what I've heard on a lot of different streamers, influencers, and stuff, just when they're being honest on their channels, is that a lot of them are just going through their own emotional problems themselves.
Yeah, of course.
And so you compile all that together, it seems like it goes real fast into a quick emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I see the similarities. Now, normally that's also prime content, so it's kind of debatable on how you want to handle that.
Yeah. Oh, here's a question. Are there times when negotiators actually deliver on requests, or is that always like just things they say to get the person to comply?
So we always deliver on any requests because statistically, people who get themselves in these situations are likely to do it again.
Uh-huh.
About 70% of people who end up in a situation where we're called are going to do it again. So if I lie, that ruins whoever comes in the next time's chance.
Jeez. Okay.
And that's for anything, whether it's taking a hostage to get something you want or even just being suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, our priority is a nonviolent resolution. So we're trying to make sure we can solve it before anybody has to go in and get injured. Because when we go in, we get injured too.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Is there like a specific psychological profile of somebody that's more likely to take a hostage versus somebody that wouldn't? Like, is this something that like any type of criminal will do, or is it more likely to be like a domestic situation, or?
So the biggest psychological profile would be for people who end up in these situations. It's going to sound kind of sad, but it's just people who've never been listened to. And so usually when we come in onto something like that, they're people who are driven to such desperate measures and such emotional states that they feel that that's the only way they can get something done.
Okay.
We're talking about, the people who, like a single mom who lost their job and their only thing is not to just commit suicide, but to kill their children because they can they're the best ones to provide for them, and without them, how are their children going to survive?
Mm-hmm.
It's completely logical when you're thinking about it from a purely logical perspective. But once you start getting into the emotional state, then it's a little bit, you can see where they're coming from.
Yeah. Wait, you mean it's purely logical that they shouldn't kill their children themselves? Right?
Yeah, no, I said, oh, did it come off as logical? I meant to say illogical.
Oh, yeah, okay. Just making sure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, as a hostage negotiator, are you like a typical like law enforcement officer, or are you only called in for these things, or?
So anybody who's members of these things, it's an additional thing. It's an additional duty. So you step out and try out, go through the training, and then it's when the situation arises, you put that hat on.
So you're telling me there's a chance that you could negotiate against somebody who you've like written a fucking speeding ticket for?
Yeah, that's technically true.
Okay.
Actually, for my scenario, yeah, there's a good chance. It's a real good chance.
Oh wait, are you? So wait, have you said which state you work in? You did, right?
I said California. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm just making sure I'm not repeating things from an email. Do you are you? So is it California Highway Patrol? Is that what you're part of, or
No.
is it LAPD, or what is it?
No, so I never said I was police. I said I was with the police. I'm actually for the Department of Corrections. So if
Okay.
I work in prisons, so there's actually a good chance that I could talk to somebody that I've given extra time to or something like that.
Okay, gotcha. But you're not like a normal like patrol officer or something. Or are hostage negotiators ever or generally normal patrol officers? Oh, okay.
I'm just a regular officer.
Gotcha.
So when I was trying to think of my academy, there were a lot of sergeants and lieutenants, but for the most part, it's regular, and then they tend to promote better.
Okay. Do you get if you have this hostage negotiation like training / certification, do you always get like are you on like a permanent pay bump, or is it only when you're doing those types of situations? I'm just curious.
No, there's no pay bump at all, actually.
Oh damn.
Yeah, I get extra hours because the situation can last for days, so I'll be on for that whole time.
Huh.
But I'll also be working for the majority of that time. I think most policies say that a negotiator should stay on for about 8 hours at a time, especially like FBI guidelines. But I think we'll go 12 to 16 if need be.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If you work in corrections, do you actually work like in jails sometimes?
I work in prisons.
Do you think it's possible if you were to get like a high profile, would you probably don't call them clients, you probably call them prisoners, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Prisoner, inmate.
If you had a really high profile inmate that you knew was at an extra high like risk of suicide, did Jeffrey Epstein actually kill himself, or did you guys do it? Do you have the answer?
I don't have the answer to that one.
Oh, never mind.
I would guess that he killed himself though.
Really?
Yeah. Because like with all things, a lot of police work is like balance between rights and everything. So even if you had high profile, you wouldn't be like crazy monitoring, because then that'd be another lawsuit for like inhumane levels of surveillance sort of things.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no, like once you're in prison, you don't lose all your rights. You don't completely lose your Fourth Amendment right.
But I'm sure there's like some degree of like high level monitoring for prisoners that are like super like at high risk for suicide, right?
Every 30 minutes. And what you do in between that check, that's on you. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Ooh.
He was marked as not a high risk of suicide anymore, Destiny. Oh, is that actually true, RTBA? It's interesting, but okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, because he was in a federal prison, so I don't know much about their policies. But I know how specialized housing units work, and those ones, and they're an every 30-minute check. At night, it's every hour, because they sued and said that every 30 minutes kept waking them up, so we were depriving them of sleep, and they want it. So.
Oh, okay. I have a real good sociopathic question for you. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Have you been able to take any of the training that you've gotten insofar as hostage negotiation goes, and apply that to any type of personal life events?
Yeah. Yeah. So, a real easy one that everybody who goes to the academy says right after is they say that their wives or girlfriends have never loved them as much as they do right now.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much about talking,
Mm-hmm.
it's more about listening.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn how to listen. And there's a lot of guys who never listen to begin with.
Sure.
So it's like a big change, especially officers.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So I found my notes for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah. I could go over a couple things on there. Let me see. So a lot of what we don't want to do is be accusatory. We don't want to attack whoever we're talking to,
Mm-hmm.
because it's often said that arguments don't change people's minds, but relationships do.
Sure.
So one of the bigger things that we're trying to do is build a relationship. So like when you were saying you have no problem describing descriptive claims versus your prescriptive claims,
Mm-hmm.
we would call that on our terms is more like empathizing and as opposed to sympathizing. So I can empathize with the emotions that you're feeling when you say this. It doesn't mean that I agree with you. But I understand those emotions. I can understand why you would walk that or talk that way, do that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally, I still disagree, but I'm saying that as a human, I respect those emotions.
Sure.
And I don't want to accuse you on them. A big thing, like a quick rhetorical thing that could change sort of is when you're putting heat on somebody and you say why is always accusatory. It has like a connotation of defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you could say, oh, what led you to believe that? Oh, what brought you here? What brought you to that conclusion? And now you're actually allowing them to expand and open up. And then if you have somebody who's kind of like JonTron, they're going to probably say something stupid.
Gotcha. What do you do when so eventually you're going to drill down, I imagine, to them saying something that you want to push back on. So like I imagine if you're negotiating with some guy at some point, like, why are you holding this person hostage? And they might say, well, nobody respects me, which might be true. And then you say, well, why is that? Or what led you to believe that? Eventually it's going to drill down to like, there's no place for me in this world. I don't have any options. There's nothing I can possibly do. Like, this is the only thing I can do. What do you do when you hit like that? There's got to be some rock bottom claim that you have to like be able to not argue with them on, but push back on. How do you identify that? What do you do?
A lot of it's going to be like a therapy, honestly.
Uh-huh.
But it's going to come off as like, have you felt this way before?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let them elaborate, talk. A lot of it's going to be a lot of time. It's never going to be like a fast, quick thing. Or
Sure.
could be. But ideally you want to, same thing like for a suicidal person. Oh, have you ever felt this depressed before? Have you ever felt this sad?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever wanted to take your life before? What did you do then? What did you do to get your mind off of it? And then you can guide it that way.
Gotcha.
Same thing with that. Somebody says, I don't feel like there's any place. Nobody ever listens to me. What did you do before? Well, I used to go out for a run, figure out what their coping mechanisms were.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're healthy or unhealthy, try and get them more towards those coping mechanisms again. And then from there, once you've built them up a little bit, try and direct them towards more healthy coping mechanisms. So if it's somebody who's like, well, every time I felt pissed, I went and I shot up heroin and just passed out. Oh, well, I can't get you heroin.
Yeah.
But,
Do you ever do what's I'm sure that when you guys are talking about these things, I'm sure you guys have like case studies where you talk about specific negotiations that were either exemplary or extraordinary or something, right?
We have some where we talk. So, but for the most part, we try to treat every single one as a unique experience.
Sure. Do you?
So, because
or go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say every person's different. Every person has different things that make them tick. So if you start building up a lot of case studies, and not so much talking about techniques or how you went around things, but so more actually like looking at solutions, then you could end up doing a solution that pisses somebody off.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
I guess what I was kind of getting at, I was just curious of is like, what's like the weirdest request or like the oddest request that you've had to fulfill, or that somebody's had to fulfill as part of like a hostage negotiation that you heard of?
Uh, yeah, I couldn't think of one.
Yeah. Okay.
Normally, it's yeah. That's not something. Also, like full techniques on what would and would not be negotiable aren't something I'm comfortable talking about.
Oh, sure. I
Unless,
guess because if people know exactly what they can
yeah,
and can't get, that's probably not a good. Yeah.
exactly.
Sure. Okay.
So, but there are, yeah. I guess during training we had somebody make sure that we would tell our commander at the time that he was a fucking idiot. So that
Wait,
was a
what? Why?
because you didn't build good rapport with the guy.
Oh! Not one of the negotiators, but the guy, the hostage taker or whatever. Told. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Well, yeah.
Are there any like precursors to like this is going to turn into a hostage situation? Or are there any like huge signs where it's like this is likely to play out this way? Or
So, in a world where it seems like a lot of people think that the government has a lot more power than it does,
uh-huh.
when really it's Google and Apple
Facebook and
and
yeah.
all those things, Facebook, that are monitoring everything they probably have those signs.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. It'd be nice to know. It'd be nice to know ahead of time that I was going to be called out at midnight, but it's normally at 10 till 1 that you get a phone call.
Gotcha.
Hey, we're up. But once we get there, yeah, there's things that we look at. There's things that we look at to determine factors of violence. And this is more so to know whether or not that we can talk to somebody or whether or not it's more go time.
Okay.
Because you don't want to sit there and be talking to somebody who has like almost no chance of being talked to and everybody inside is going to be hurt.
Yeah, of course.
For every police agency, there is a priority of life. You have hostages and innocent civilians, bystanders.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the first responders. And underneath that, you have the specialized responders. And then finally, the subject themselves, whoever decided to start the incident.
When you negotiate, is it always during like active situations, or have you ever had somebody like that's trying to like threaten something that you negotiate with? Does that make sense?
That kind of makes sense. I mean, for the most part, like the training that I use on inmates on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I've used that to calm down a lot of situations and make things stop before they go off. But if you're like, maybe in a couple years, then that'll be something that I've gone through. In my position right now, that's
Mm-hmm.
not something that I really have to worry about.
Okay.
But a lot of what we do falls in line similarly with techniques that lawyers use. So, because there's a lot of lawyer negotiators.
Mm-hmm.
On the research that I've done, it seems like we share a lot of research together. The only difference then is our stress is a little different because there's lives on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas their stress amounts to losing control because a negotiation is a give and take relationship.
Gotcha. How many, is it oftentimes important to have only one negotiator working like a particular case, or can you swap?
Let's see. It gets real hard to answer some of these questions because it's like I'm not sure which ones are confidential answers.
Oh, sure.
Because some of them are you can Google this and figure this out. It's not on
Oh, yeah,
Wikipedia,
but you don't know
it's-
100%
but
which
it's-
ones. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because like this is technically an answer that you could Google and you could find out everything on a negotiation team.
Mm-hmm.
But you would have to go to like multiple different sites to piece it together.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if it was simple on Wikipedia, because I checked on a lot of these whether I'd tell you,
Mm-hmm.
but no, you don't. You want to keep one for as long as possible, but like I said, we'll work 8 to 12 hour shifts, sort of deal.
Sure.
So if you're talking about something like happened at Arizona Lewis Prison, where that lasted for 15 days, you're not gonna be talking to the same guy for 15 days straight.
Sure.
Because we want to stay rested so that we can make good decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking in terms of like building a rapport, it would suck if you feel like you were getting pretty far with one guy and then they swap in another negotiator.
Yeah, no, that can suck.
Okay.
I've heard of that happening where it's like some teams where everybody was too gung-ho to go, they would talk for 45 minutes, switch, talk for 45 minutes, switch, and that was, what are you doing? Did you forget your training?
Sure.
There we go. Cool. So, like, just a real quick, back to, like, the whole things that could be said for types of rapport. Where are we at? So, like, with the whole Jenna scenario, I'm just going off, like, more recent things.
Yeah, sure.
When she was freaking out, talking about how nobody's listening to her and everything, it could have, that's something where, if that was one of us on the line, we would have been like, well, sounds to me like your self-image, or it's really important that people don't think you're a terrible person. Because that was the main thing she was trying to get out. She's not a terrible person.
Yeah.
She wasn't necessarily denying anything else like that. For us, we would try to build towards something that would get those things out, still say a lot of what got said, and then towards the end of it, we would be looking for, in the middle of that, be like, so you don't want people thinking you're such a terrible person. Well, how would you accomplish that? And then we'll start problem-solving questions that way once we build a certain level of rapport.
Okay.
So from there, it could even have been like, hey, for that scenario, you'd be like, what you did seemed really scumbaggy. The clip shows really bad, looks really bad. So how would we stop this? And from there, if you're thinking on your end how you want this to end, as you build towards something, you'd be like, hey, I say that doing these things are not cool, and then you build towards something where you could have like those public statement stuffs. And so that way you check off, you get to empathize with what she's feeling. You repeat it back to her, so that way her emotions are being heard. And so that way she feels that you're listening, and then you start problem solving together in a way that can still, because just because you can empathize with the feeling doesn't mean you agree with the actions taken.
Sure. What, in terms of, have you watched any of my, have you seen any of my, political debates or whatever?
Yeah. So on a lot of those,
Uh-huh.
I think, again, this could be helpful because your main goal is more you're trying to talk to the audience, right?
Yeah, generally, yeah.
So the way that I see it is a lot of these people, they choose who they identify with, and it's almost like a representative for them. So if you come hard and attack them, they'll be feeling like they were attacked rather than being reasoned with.
Sure.
So even with those things, it's like acknowledge where the emotions lie and then try and get to the facts afterwards. Do you have any examples you'd like to go over? Most of what I watch is more off of YouTube because I'm just too busy for streams all the time.
Well, I mean, I guess the one where I'm trying to be more personable, let's go with that, or more understanding, would be the one with Enoch recently.
Yeah. Yeah, because that gets hard because it's in the debate platform. It kind of changes it up. It's not a normal conversation.
Yeah, of course.
So there's a part where saying what they're saying is almost platforming them, and then that kind of becomes a big question. But if you're willing to go through that path of trying to talk and empathize with them, there's a couple just verbal types of techniques that could be done, and I don't think I've ever heard it. So the biggest one is that emotional one. Another one is what was it? Mirroring and summarizing what they're saying after they're done, and then attacking a main point after that. With Mike Enoch, I watched that one. I'm trying to remember points.
I'm really curious on the so one thing that you said so far that's kind of interesting that I haven't considered before is the idea that asking somebody why by default puts them on the defensive rather than trying to figure out what led you to believe a certain thing. Are there any big points like that or other kind of conversational techniques like that you know about?
Yeah, so one of the ones is mirroring, summarizing their points. So when you're going to attack theirs, you're writing down your notes and you're just assuming that they remember what they said, right?
Kind of, yeah. Or at least broadly speaking, yeah. Or well, right. I try to. I guess my goal in a conversation is that what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to acknowledge and restate all the descriptive claims they've made. So all of the factually correct things that I agree with about the world. And then my goal is to take that, and then after I summarize those things, try to offer a different like solution, a different prescriptive claim about it. Like, well, instead of, I agree that, this and this and this and this are problems, maybe this could be a solution instead, is typically is my goal, I guess.
Yeah. So, and that sounds a lot like what we're doing, because people are giving their own like, I'm just going to use emotional because that's what I'm more used to, but they're giving their emotional statements that aren't completely caught up in the facts, and their idea of a solution is take somebody hostage or kill myself or something, and we're trying to give a different prescriptive solution for it. So one of the things that you could try also is mirroring and summarizing, and that's kind of just like, before you start, it would be like repeating what they said, either the end of what they said or just a general census, and then you attack that rather than attacking every single little point. Because I feel like on the online cloud, or I don't know how to say it, but basically that community, everybody says everything with so many conditions that it's going to end up sparking 1,000 different tangents. Somebody says this, and then when you go to say something about that, and they, whoa, I meant that under this, and this circumstance. You go, okay, under this circumstance. Well, I meant that under these circumstances with these conditions. And it's really all because they realize what they said might have been offensive to somebody or some way, and they want to protect that image of themselves by putting all these clarifiers.
Okay, yeah. So I have a specific question about this. So I can give a specific example of this, and then I'm curious what. Yeah. So one thing that comes up very commonly is booby streamers. Are you familiar? Does that term mean anything to you? Okay.
Oh, no, I understand the term Twitch thought.
Yeah, sure. So booby streamers will come up. So I might be talking to somebody, and they'll say something like, I think that women that booby stream are shameless or disgusting or something, right? Somebody will say something like that. And then when that argument like progresses, so it'll be like, okay, well, when you say like somebody like that is, shameless or whatever, like what is wrong with that? What do you mean by that? Like what behavior is shameless or wrong? And then instead of getting an answer, what I'll normally get is more and more and more and more qualifiers. Actually, a really good example of this was when this is a long time ago, but did you ever know about a debate I did with Sky Williams over booby streamers?
No, I haven't heard the Sky Williams one. I'm more familiar with the recent one with the Squad W drama and all that.
Yeah,
train wrecks.
The one that I had with Sky Williams was perfect because his thing essentially started off with women that wear cleavage are taking advantage of men online. And like, that's it. And then when I had the conversation with him, eventually his position that he retreated to was women that stream and tell men that there's a good chance that they'll date them if they donate money to them, that those women are harmful. We went from something that encompassed like 50% of women on Twitch to maybe a handful. I've never even heard of this happening before.
Right.
Yeah. I guess
I feel like if that happened, that would make some sort of news, actually.
Yeah. I think that there was like one or two times where something leaked and it seemed like somebody was doing this, which was obviously horrible. In the entire community, everybody condemned it. It was a bad thing. So I guess like one frustrating problem that I have is a lot of the times a conversation will begin and then I'll get them to back off the broad claim. They retreat to some hyper-specific claim like that, and then we'll seemingly reach a point of agreement in the conversation where obviously we agree that if somebody's intentionally taking advantage of somebody, but whatever, this is a horrible thing to do. But then they go back later and then they resume making all of the broad claims that they did before. So it's like that conversation never even happened.
Right.
This might be less because I guess for hostage negotiation, you don't deal with people on a repeated basis where it's like where you set them or well, I guess you kind of do. Well, actually, no. So I guess you kind of do. Yeah. So what do? You negotiate with a guy. He says some real dumb shit. You eventually convince them that like, hey, you're saying some real dumb shit in softer ways or whatever, kind of. But then when he comes back out, he's like saying the same dumb shit. What do you do? Like, hey, Frank, we're doing this again. What the fuck, man? Like, how do you? Yeah.
Depends on for those ones. It depends on the person. The level that they could handle it. So there's some scenarios in that where people who aren't even hostage negotiators deal with smaller barricaded situations where that level of rapport and relationship, they could be like, hey, why are we doing this again? And it just ends. Other than that, you always have to be careful because if you ended up doing something like that, again, it could come off judgmental and then they'll feel attacked and now you're starting from a negative then a zero. For because I'm a little more familiar with the Trainwrecks one. Uh, I feel like I could talk a little bit on that one because it seems to me that when he was saying shameless and all those other things, it's more like he was agreeing with you when you like to say, if you watch fan service, just own up to it. A lot of those things where it's like call spades spades, and that's his version of shameless. The difference is where you two are putting your criticism on. You put your criticism on the audience, whoever is deciding to partake in the media, whereas he's putting his criticism on the content creator. And I feel like that's where the big drift is. There was a clip of Hassan hearing you say that, going, you agree with Trainwrecks completely, and I understood where he was coming from. I was like, oh, that sounds like a problem there. But so for one of those ones like that, so to get that different perspective claim is getting to that level, building rapport, being able to repeat. So like, rather than saying, why say shameless, be like, so what makes you think that these people are shameless? What gets you to, okay, so what's wrong with being shameless in a non-judgmental way, where you're talking to them on that level?
That's really hard because usually when I start asking questions like that, like, okay, well, what's wrong with being shameless? Usually he goes into the, okay, I know you're trying to trap me.
Yeah, and that's where it gets hard with, especially with already like the I don't want to say personality you have, because I agree with you that from the debates that I've seen, the things that people say about you aren't true, but I think that's how they.
Yeah, I have a reputation for like trying to fuck people over. Essentially, is what it feels like. Probably. Oh, like he's trying to get me. Yeah, of course, I accept that.
And I think that it's also, there's just a lot of people in general who believe things that they've just never fully thought through.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've had the weird feeling myself where it's like I started saying something and then I started thinking about it more critically, and it's like, for the past like couple of years, I've literally the opposite of this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure that happens. Yeah, it should. With any person that's growing, hopefully you have that moment at some point. It's like, oh wait, I haven't thought through this enough. Yeah.
But it was more like you layered something that you thought was so many conditions that you thought they were two separate things, but they're really the same thing all along. That was more of an experience for me. Where was I trying? Oh, so again, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking. I brought up the train. Sky Williams.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I was gonna go with for those types of problem solving questions afterwards. You could easily, like, if you could deal with somebody who doesn't immediately switch into super defensive mode, you could go from there to identifying the problems, because the problems that you identified were problems that he had to deal with afterwards, right? All the incel and everything growing in his community. So it's not like you're identifying the problems wasn't true. You just hadn't seen them at the time.
Sure.
It's like trying to be able to acknowledge those emotions and then getting down to the core of them, being like, so you feel like it's messed up when people are trying to deny and hide something that's obviously true. Because, it feels like you have almost the same level of emotion when you start talking about things like the Witcher games and the sex in them, where it's like, why are people lying about the fan service level?
Yeah, I guess, but I feel like it doesn't feel like that's enough to me. Like if a bunch of people were to come out and be like, oh yeah, we do like sexy shoulder stream for viewers or whatever. I feel like it feels like there's always this undercurrent of condemnation. Does that make sense when I say that?
No, I agree. That's why I said when you where you two are putting your criticism, you're criticizing the viewer, he's criticizing the content creator.
Yeah, sure.
And it's more about dealing with the effects that creates. And that's where the problem-solving situation would come into, where you start questioning those things. But in any type of problem-solving situation, for us, the big thing is always building rapport. You don't want to put all the problem-solving on them or just force-feed somebody a bunch of answers.
Yeah, of course.
Because people just don't react well to those. You want to try to work together, even if... not saying that you are, but even if you're like the more emotionally, mentally mature one guiding them, it's still about letting them feel that way,
Yeah, sure. Or figuring out answers themselves without necessarily feeling like you're telling them how to think. Sure.
Yeah. When things go off the rails, this is more like an FBI tactic, but you can always just ask an unrelated question. think about like a lot of your debates where somebody said something that didn't seem like it was relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Very other than like Raj Royale, who are just trying to attack each other all the time. You don't have people say that's completely irrelevant. They just answer the question.
Oh, like as a way to what, like calm somebody down, basically, or
A way to calm somebody down, redirect. Just changing the subject is always something that you can do.
huh? Okay.
Where were we going? Yeah.
Someone in chat says, sorry, real quick. What is the point of trying not to just dunk on people and actually better your approach in debating, unless you're actually trying to get your own show or something? I'm genuinely curious because your biggest videos and content has just been dunking on people. I guess that it feels to me like there are a lot of like pretty large figures on the right now that are speaking to pretty real problems that a lot of people are experiencing. And it feels like a lot of people on the left are missing those. And it hurts me to see people like Jordan Peterson or Nick Fuentes, or any of these types of people like get larger and larger followings and speak to people, and that when I look on the left, except for like Bernie Sanders, I don't really see people that are as adamant about addressing these issues. I'm trying to think in the online leftosphere. I'm sure there are probably some now. ContraPoints does a really, really good job, but she doesn't release videos enough. She needs more content. But yeah. It feels like nobody wants to speak to like the disaffected white straight male. And I mean, even though like on a purely factual level, like you shouldn't have problems. I mean, they obviously feel like they do. So you need somebody to like, you know, recapture that audience without making them feel like, you know, you fucking hate all of them. I feel like that's a problem sometimes.
Yeah. No, and what was it? I always feel like it's weird whenever you have somebody who's more alt-right on there who's like sitting back smiling when you're basically defending one of their points, but they're not willing to jump in and help you. Or was it Raj Royale? You had that.
Oh god, there's a guy called Games and Gains. I don't know if you're familiar with that dude, but I'm pretty sure that dude is a fucking stealth like fucking Nazi. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It also, I feel like online content,
Mm-hmm.
Harbor like is just creating different types of people that law enforcement will have to deal with sooner or later. And I feel like when it happens, we're going to be ridiculously out of information.
Sure.
Honestly, a lot of the way that like we talk sounds a lot more like that psychologist. What was he?
Dr. K. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we sound a lot more like him. He was actually using a lot of our technique to talk to you.
Well, I think there's a lot of general conversational techniques that it's weird, but
yeah.
I feel like as humans, we don't typically. We're really well. No, I shouldn't say that. Maybe it's more a societal thing, but we're very not good at talking to each other. And there's a lot of different aspects of especially because I've been involved with so much career-wise that like I can see like how to do some things really well, and I see a lot of common pitfalls that people make. One of the biggest examples of this is when it comes to apologizing. I've noticed that the vast majority of people don't know how to write or how to give a good apology. That a lot of people include a lot of rationalizations in an apology. A lot of people use apologies that are actually more accusatory than anything else. And then a lot of people don't acknowledge the actual problems in their apology when they do it. And it basically just ends up being a statement that just like, you know, throws more gasoline on the fire. So like, for instance, if somebody does something wrong to somebody, like all three of those points, like somebody might say like, yeah, you know, I know that I did this thing and I'm sorry, but man, like you antagonized me so much. Like I just felt like I had no other choice. It's like, oh, you're attacking the other person. Or they might say like, oh yeah, you know, I did that one thing. I was just really tired. Like, yeah, I won't let that happen again or whatever. Like they give excuses or whatever. Or sometimes they don't even acknowledge the actual problem. They're just like, yeah, I know we've had disagreements. And I see a lot of that when it comes to like apology writing, that a lot of people don't understand, you know, what are the key components that you need to have in one, and then what are the pitfalls that you should avoid that everybody seems to step into a lot.
No, yeah. I totally agree with that. That's something that I also think anybody in a good relationship soon learns to, because a lot of times you end up doing it yourself, and then you're like, wait a second.
I actually should kind of disagree though. I don't think like I try to be very careful when I label like things like if you're in a good relationship or better relationship. I don't think it's a thing that you learn naturally. I think you have to actually stop and give it some actual like there's a term, not mindfulness, like dedicated thought. You have to actually sit down, like focused, like directional, like I'm going to think about this thing and figure it out. Because if you don't actually like give it some actual conscious thought, I don't think people will ever actually learn it. You have to actually sit down and do it. It's very unnatural to like give a good apology. I noticed that, which is very strange. It seems stupid, but yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's unnatural because a lot of people are trying to still protect their own image of themselves in their head.
Oh, maybe, yeah, but they're not even aware of that, yeah.
They're not aware that when they do that, they're accusing somebody. One of the things that like my wife feels when I accidentally hurt her feelings, she'll be like, "But I still felt that way."
Yeah,
you're not answering the reason why I felt that way. It's when you end up saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I did this, but I did this because this and this and this."
Yeah,
you're really trying to say, "God, I'm not an idiot. I really didn't mean to hurt you. Here's the reasons why I listed them out." And you list out your exact thought process and order. They don't care.
Because what you're doing then at that point is you're not actually apologizing. You're entering a debate where you're trying to justify why you did what you did.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rather than just pull something like, "Listen, I did this. I understand it made you feel that way. I fucked up. It's not going to happen again." And like that's it. Yeah. But that type of apology is almost it is so inhuman to actually give that type of apology. It's insane. Yeah. And it's crazy because I see like large figures sometimes that will write, fuck, I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but sometimes I see companies and large figures write things where it's like, I could have written that better. What are you doing? Like this is I know there are like tens of millions of dollars behind this company. Why are you writing something so stupidly? What's wrong with you? Yeah. It's a very unnatural skill, I feel.
Yeah. And then another pretty unnatural skill too, just goes along right with this is, I think it's not that we're not good at communicating as much as we're just not good at listening.
Maybe, yeah.
Because listening takes certain ways of communicating to keep listening, but most people listen with a response in mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that feeling sometimes. If you're listening to someone who's like, it doesn't really matter what I say to you. Like, you already know what you're going to say, right? Yeah.
But a lot of times, if you stop and you listen, that'll throw them off because they weren't prepared for that.
For sure, yeah.
And then that takes it again, because when you're doing those things, when you're listening to say something and you have two people doing that, you end up having people kind of attacking each other with their words and their opinions. And sometimes you'll get people who be like, "Oh, he made a lot of good points. I can see where he came from," but you're not going to get anywhere in current talk. Whereas if you actually go, "Oh, why'd you think this? Blah, blah, blah," and you start building that level of rapport. There's a thing called a SCARF model that I was just looking up. It's more for lawyer relationships. But it just goes or relationships, lawyer negotiations. It just goes over like different things in our neurochemistry that trigger our attack, like our defensive responses versus our pleasure ones. So like whether you're talking about somebody's status, their certainty of like how things are going to be going, their autonomy, their relatedness, and their fairness. These are all things that kind of will change the way people talk, because if they're engaged in their pleasure parts of their brain, they're going to be more open to talking, better at critical thinking. Whereas if you end up going towards those negative ones, they're going to be more in a fight or flight and just attacking, not listening, not thinking about what they're saying.
One of my one of the favorite things that I learned about like about how people like listen and how they interpret like certain types of things is how I still make this mistake, is how absolutely fucking destructive the word "but" is. If you say anything at all to someone, you can literally say, "You're Jesus, you're the best person," blah blah blah, but nothing you say before that word has any bearing on the rest of the conversation. That it is the ultimate deleter of any possibly good thing you could ever possibly say, and that in some conversations, just replacing the word "but" with the word "and" it actually is like beneficial to the flow of the conversation. That putting the word "but" after something is like the worst possible thing you can do in terms of talking to somebody.
Yeah, no, I can see that completely. I think that just kind of has to go to like with where you're focusing your statements, because now that's become the center. And it's more like all those amazing things sounded like a qualifier.
Yeah, that you were just saying so you could get to the real thing we wanted to trash the person. Yeah.
Whereas saying "and" makes it all-inclusive. It's like, you are this and you're that.
Oh, sorry. Okay, hold on. So somebody earlier said, What's your viewpoint on acknowledging that you made someone feel that way, but you're not taking responsibility for them interpreting something the way they did, especially if you discussed with someone before that you did not intend to come across in that manner? So a lot of the times, okay, fuck, it's so hard to spin off examples of this.
Well, you could talk about like any racist thing where somebody's about to say not to sound racist, but
anytime you start, not to sound X, but X, yeah, that's a really stupid, yeah.
I do think that can be used in a constructive way, but it's only when you're talking about things that are normally taboo.
Maybe, yeah. I think that when you're trying to apologize for how you made somebody feel, but you're not necessarily regretful of the action, one thing that you have to consider is what kind of relationship do you want with this person? If there's a person you want to maintain a relationship with, I think that the important thing is you acknowledge, like something happened where they felt bad, and you have to acknowledge that thing, and then you have to say that you'll do something going forward to not trigger that response. So like maybe I eat meat in front of somebody. Let's say I have a friend who's super vegan and I eat meat in front of them, and they're like super like shocked or taken aback, and they're really upset about it. Now I'm not gonna say like, I'm sorry for eating meat, like, you dumb motherfucker, I'm a carnivore, eat shit. It's not going to be that type of apology. Or like a real apology. Here's like a real apology somebody might give that's a bad apology. Like, listen, I'm really sorry that you saw me eat meat, but you know, like, I'm a meat eater, like that's just a difference that we're going to have. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that I made you feel that way, but like, I eat meat, right? That would be like an apology that somebody might give, and it's like, okay, well, I apologize to them, but I maintain my position. I think that like a better apology to give in that situation is like, listen, like, you know, when I eat meat around you, obviously I see that upsets you. I'm going to do a better job going forward to make sure that I don't engage in that activity around you because I see that it upsets you. Like, I'm really sorry that I did that, and I'm going to do better going forward. Like, I think that, like, just acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge the part that you're at fault at. You don't try to defend. Like, if you start, like, trying to debate about, like, well, I think it was okay because it was that, like, I feel like you get lost in the weeds in that, and then it's just going to feel like a debate rather than just, like, acknowledge the thing that you did that made them feel uncomfortable and tell them that you're not going to do that going forward. I think those are, like, the important things. Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree. And that sounds a lot like what I was trying to say on the other stuff. I feel like you can take that mindset and then apply it to some of these debate things, like, you know, not so much that you're sorry, but, oh, so you feel this way, blah, blah, blah. And then it's more expounding upon that in, like, right in that apology, you notice you address the emotional content. You didn't defend yourself or anything like that, nor did you attack them. And then you went into problem solving. You know, hey, look, I don't want you to feel that way again.
Yeah.
What can we do to do that? Does that mean we don't eat together? I try to eat less meat. Maybe we only go for coffee. You know,
for sure. What's an example of a situation you do defend yourself in? Oh, so for me, okay, so the most important question that I think you have to think about is what type of relationship do you want with this person going forward? So I know all of these techniques. I don't care. I'm okay with having very few, if any, relationships. I have Melina, and then I've got a few friends I play against online. So you're not going to see me do a lot of these things in real life because for me, I don't give a fuck genuinely about, like, if there's a certain thing that I do that upsets someone, I normally don't care. But like, yeah, that's my point of view. but like most people aren't comfortable being like pretty alone. Like, I am a very like isolated person, and I'm okay with that, but I understand why. But that doesn't mean I understand what I could say to make certain things better. But usually it's like this. It's just a principled thing for me. I don't really care that much, and yeah, it is possible that even for people you care about, there might be some things that you don't want to apologize for because you feel like they're important principles. So, for instance, maybe your parents are upset that you're dating somebody of like a race that you don't that they don't approve of. Right? This is common. I'm in the Midwest. I've heard of this happening before. I'm sure it happens in the South even more. But like in those cases, you don't necessarily have to apologize, right? You don't have to apologize for anything. There can be things where you say like, listen, we're never going to agree on this, and that's it, you know? Like that's possible as well, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of those ones. I think that depends on where you want your stance to be, and again, like you said, what you want that relationship to be. So with what I do, we're always trying to go up in rapport. So one of those things is you could just be like, hey, look, you know, I am sorry that you guys feel let down by my decisions, but I'm not stepping back. You can either continue, we can work something out, or I'm gone. So you still set your ground. You still said F off, basically, but you did it in a way that you acknowledged their emotions, that you didn't intend to hurt their emotions by it, but something's got to change if we're going forward, and I'm willing to leave you.
Wait, really? I felt like well, here, let's debate about this. Actually, I actually think that so something that you said is something that I consider, you can agree or disagree, I consider that to be a really, really common pitfall when giving apologies. Is I think one of the worst things you can say to somebody is, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That always seems like a where basically what you're doing is you're blaming them for like an emotional response that they're having for something that you've said.
So, I would disagree on that one. So I would even say that in the way that I word, like, I feel like there's some ways that people say that where they are doing that, but it's usually, and this, now we're getting like super semantics, but a lot of people would say, I'm sorry you feel that way. You know what I mean? There's a small difference, and the difference is the subject, where it's, I'm sorry you feel that way, you're the subject. You feel that way about my decisions.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, yeah, I understand. Yeah, okay, yeah. So the difference being that, like, I'm sorry that you have a problem with, me dating somebody that is not a race you approve of, but this is what we're going to do. As opposed to, like, as opposed to, like, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. Sure, okay, no, you're right. Yeah, I understand. Okay, sure.
Oh, man, I had something and I lost it.
Have there been any other, like, or sorry, go for it. I don't want to make you lose it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so I wasn't sure when you were, like, how much of that was to chat to me or just to both.
Oh, I'm just asking you a question to chat right now.
Okay. Well, I was going to say a lot of what you said about the, being okay with being alone and not caring about what you say to other people. Like, how much of that carries into your debates?
Well, it depends on what the purpose of my debate is. This is something that I do that a lot of people have a lot of trouble understanding is, there are a lot of people that are very edgy and very abrasive in real life, and they don't care to understand how that impacts other people.
Right.
I think I have a very good understanding of how I impact other people, but I choose not to pay attention to it. But I think, I choose to, like, continue to act the way that I do. But I think some people are oblivious to how their abrasiveness can impact other people. So I'm aware, for instance, that I am a very abrasive person. I'm aware that there are a lot of people that will never be friends with me because of my abrasiveness, and that it's cost me friendships and even business relationships. I'm aware of that, but I acknowledge it and I'm okay with it. I think that some people will be abrasive, but they'll kind of be in denial about it. They'll be like, well, they shouldn't care that much, or, well, whatever, it's not that big a deal, or, they're just babies or whatever. I think that people have that pitfall a lot. And so far as my debates go, the level of abrasiveness that I want to have just comes down to what my intention is for the debate. So if I'm debating somebody that I think is just a fucking idiot and I just want to fucking trash on somebody for 2 hours because fuck it, I don't care, I'll usually be like pretty confrontational, like pretty abrasive. But like for the Enoch debate, where my goal is to try to find common ground to convert as many of their followers as possible by seemingly having like a reasonable voice, I'll try to be far less abrasive. I'll try to be like more chill and not go into as many like personal attacks or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. That's good. I would say, because keeping that angle in mind is something that like we had to deal with, because we definitely don't agree with or particularly like a lot of the people that we had to talk to. But it's more about whose lives are on the line, what's at stake, and those angles. But I actually don't think you went off on Enoch really at all.
Not much. I did one personal attack about his wife being Jewish, but for the most part, I don't think, I didn't attack him that much, no.
No, yeah, so that's good. Cool. Anything else on conversations? I'm just trying to think, like, general talking points.
I don't think so. If you have any, I love there are little like conversational techniques that I've learned that are so incredibly helpful. I don't know if I get uncomfortable saying this because I'm not sure. I don't know if I might be like a little bit neuroatypical or autistic or whatever. But like I've learned like little pieces of information that have helped me so much with conversations with other people. You said something that I'm probably going to take with me forever. That asking somebody what led you to feel that way rather than like, why do you think that? That's actually like a really important thing that I don't think I ever would have thought of on my own. When you're talking to somebody, not saying anything, like if you say like, okay, why do you think this thing or whatever, and a person starts talking and then you don't respond to them, they'll keep talking. I learned that from like a journalist guy, that if you don't answer somebody, or if you don't answer their response, they'll usually keep volunteering information because people are uncomfortable with silence and they'll keep filling the air. That's like a really helpful technique I've learned to get people to talk a little bit more if I want to hear more from them. Asking people about themselves and then asking more questions about what they ask is like a really cool technique I've learned. If you have a conversation with someone and you ask them a lot about themselves, they come away from that conversation feeling like they had a really good talk and that you're very like that you like them a lot and they like you because you asked them a lot of things like that. Yeah, little things like that are actually so incredibly helpful.
Yeah, no. Actually, that we call that an effective pause. So
an effective pause. Oh, will you pause and let them volunteer more information?
It doesn't matter how long it is. You could just go for like 30 seconds, make it awkward. The more awkward, the better.
If you ask somebody to, another thing I learned is if you ask somebody, oh wait, you must have read this book. I don't know if it's still recommended. I read this in grade school and I took so much of this with me. Do they make you guys read How to Win Friends and Influence People?
No,
they don't. Have you ever read it before?
No, I might look at it now.
Oh my god, there are so many. I might listen to an audiobook of that on stream. There are so many random pieces of information in that book that are just so fucking on point. Holy shit. Yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Jesus, I don't recommend reading much, but goddamn, there's so many good pieces of information in that book. Asking somebody like, or sorry, go ahead real quick.
Oh no, I was just gonna say another little technique. This one wasn't one that we learned, but I read it in an FBI book. Was the effectiveness of letting people say no. So one of the things that, and I think this might actually have to do a lot with your negative portrayal, is when you're giving a good argument and you're trying to lead somebody down to like the negative effects of something that they might have said that they realized, you like to bring them down a train of thought. Well, what do you say to this? Yes. 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 Well, therefore you must think this. And that has a really negative influence on people. The way it was described in our book is it's a lot like a car salesman. Like when they're trying to get you to get a car that you weren't sure about, and then they kind of pigeonhole you into it. That's how they end up feeling. They end up feeling like you. And actually, going back to that SCARF model, the R, what was that one? Oh no, not the R, the A, the autonomy. When you do that to somebody, you end up taking away their autonomy. So they end up feeling like they had no say, no thought in the matter, and you force them in there. So you're engaging with the part of their brain that says that you're attacking them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, I do that literally all the time. Yeah.
I know. That one I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's important. To do that deductively to illustrate the deductive irrationality of an argument. If you believe this and this and this, therefore you must believe this. But almost every time I've done that, a person is almost completely and totally unwilling to engage with the logical conclusion of their statements. It usually just becomes like, well, I didn't mean that thing, or well, this only applies here. I can't think of a single time I've ever done that where it's like effectively been like a way to make a person acknowledge the irrationality of what they're saying. I don't think I did that with Enoch at all, though. I don't think I went down that
No,
way.
you didn't. No, you didn't. I do think that you can get away with that with people who have philosophy backgrounds.
Yeah, but that's like less than no % of the population.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for your regular everyday person, they're just going to end up feeling like you attacked them into a pigeonhole. And even their responses seem to be very, like, no longer critical thinking responses. They're immediately shut down. They get reeled down. They just don't want to dig in.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned over the years, it's been very, very, very hard for me to accept, is that people don't put things together in their mind in a very rational manner. It's just, that's like a very inhuman thing to do. You have to learn how to do that. That generally we're very emotionally driven, we're very narratively driven. We tend to make broad assessments of things off of one or two examples. That rationality is like, it's not very much like a center point of the human mind. Like it's a very inhuman thought that you have to like pursue, deliberately. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you like, it'd be really hard to live life without those shortcuts. You don't realize how important they are until you start thinking about everything.
Oh yeah, no, I realize that. Of course, I accept that. Yeah, because no one is gonna like come out of the womb and being like, okay, well, time to analyze, the fundamental nature of every single possible object and category I interact with. Yeah, of course, a lot of things are unassuming because it would be so much work to do all of it. Yeah.
I just think it's a lot of people can't make that statement right there. And so they feel like when you say that you're attacking them personally, unfortunately. When you start saying that, oh, maybe it wasn't fully thought out, they don't hear that oh, maybe I didn't fully think, they hear, oh, I'm stupid.
I'm an idiot. Yeah.
I'm an idiot. You're calling me dumb. And it's like, that's not what I said. There's shortcuts that our brains use all the time. Sometimes with those ones, it's even acknowledging that. It's like, if you have somebody, like, say you did do the walk down the path on somebody that you want to either convince, keep the relationship, or talk to the audience and be like, hey, I said that I didn't think that it was a fully thought out thing, but I'm not trying to say that you're stupid. Did I ever once say that you were stupid, And that's one where you've even got a no right there instead of a yes for once.
Sure.
It's like, it comes off that way, but these are, you can sympathize and minimize, in fact, like, effects of what you said by making them relatable. Everybody does this. That's a very big thing for a lot of people, like hearing that for the first time. Like
that I didn't say you're stupid.
What? Well, not that, but even everybody does the brain thing. You don't even have to say, like, sometimes you probably say that they're stupid.
I do, yeah, but I'm very combative sometimes. So.
Yeah, but you could get away with it. You'd be like, hey, I didn't say you were stupid. Everybody's brain does this. Everybody does this. These are shortcuts that our brains have designed in them. Just like a lot of other shortcuts, like, you have to actively combat about that. And most of us are so busy that we can't do that anyway, But right now, since we're talking about the subject, well, let's look into it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so you were familiar with the effective pause, so you must know things that you're not telling me. What are other ways?
Well, those I might email you those later. Because those go along the lines with when you're, like, kind of asking about specifics on how we work.
Okay.
Mechanically. Does that make sense?
What is the best way? Okay, I'm gonna ask you now. We're gonna find out if you know anything. Okay, I'm about to ask you some real questions.
Probably don't.
Okay.
Go for it.
How the fuck do I fucking convince my goddamn jungler to gank my fucking lane? There's gotta be
that's impossible.
There's gotta be some techniques, or some, because this is you realize every game of League is a hostage negotiation. Okay.
Yeah. It's your whole team holding you hostage.
Yes.
The enemy team's trying to free you, but they're all tactical guys who just come in and shoot everybody.
So there must be some sort of understandings that you can have with a jungler player to get them to, what is it?
Well, maybe you should empathize with him and see what it's like in the jungle. You go in and you start taking the CS and realize how hard it is and go, hey, it might be easier in the lane.
But that doesn't work because I take jungle CS all the time and they just get upset at me for it. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then I don't know what to tell you. Oh, you queue as a jungler and then you can gank bot yourself.
True. Okay. Well.
There we go.
All right. Well, do you have any other things, I guess, related to any of this, or?
I'm trying to think. I don't have that many, like, specifics. It's more like figuring out where to go and stuff. Yeah. I'm at a loss for words right now.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess since you watch my stuff, if you ever, like, see anything, or if anything ever comes up where you are, where you think that, like, oh, like, here's, like, a thing where you probably could have tried this or that, if it feels like I'm trying to do a particular thing but I'm failing at it, if I've stated that, yeah, I'd be really interested, I guess, to hear your take on it, especially, like, going forward, my debates with the conservatives, like, I really am trying to take the empathetic route, so that I can be a little bit more effective rhetorically.
Oh, I could say that I don't think you're autistic, like, at all.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
My wife's actually got a background in behavioral therapy, so
okay.
It doesn't seem like that at all to me. If anything, I do think that you might be so focused on factual content that you either refuse or just aren't good at listening to emotional content.
Oh, it's typically refusal. Because I have to do it for relationships, yeah. I do acknowledge that, like, I absolutely ignore a lot of emotional content, 100%. But it's by choice, not because I'm completely blind to it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a thing, because I think a lot of people just think you're blind to it. Even with the whole Tri-Hex stuff, when everybody talked to you, the emotional content that they accused was that you label people that way.
What?
That you label people that way.
Label
not
people?
That you just with the N-word.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah.
Like, if you look at it and listen to the way they say it, they're not saying that you say the word. They're saying
that's what it became like a thing where it's like when you're in private, do you, like, just basically, I guess, like, the thought, it felt like when I'm in private, I just go down the list of, like, every black friend I have, like, he's an N-word, he's an N-word, he's an N-word. And, like, that's just like, yeah.
But because you never addressed the emotional content,
Mhm.
you never addressed that question in the room. That
Yeah,
was
sure,
a
yeah.
question that was never said.
Yeah, that was really weird because that was a really hard one to get through because a lot of different people were saying a lot of different things. It was like very fucking weird to me. Well, it's not weird to me, yeah. Another thing that I've had to learn, and I've learned this a lot over the past year especially, is that I have to listen to less of what people say because you have to try to divine what they really mean because people oftentimes aren't forthcoming to their emotional content. Not only to you, but sometimes not even to themselves.
No, yeah.
And that's really, really, really confusing to me sometimes. If I say something, I mean it, like full stop. Like you never have to play a game to figure out like what I mean. But for Michael, for Trihex, and I'm not shitting him or anything, but like it was very, very hard for me to listen to him give takes that were agreeing with a lot of people disagreeing with me when I felt like he had verbatim given my argument like a few weeks ago, like on the same podcast. Like that was really strange to me. But then, yeah, every now and then I have to like take a step back and be like, okay, I know this person is saying this, but do they actually mean this? Like, what do they actually mean when they say this? Like, is there something that I'm misinterpreting? Are they actually getting something different? Like, that's been a very, very difficult process for me recently to learn that. Yeah.
Right. How focused are you on your debates? Actually, like when you're listening to somebody.
I'm pretty focused. Well, I think the question you're getting at is probably like, what am I focused on, or what do you mean?
I guess I mean like, do distractions mess you up at all?
Oh, no. When I'm listening to somebody, I'm listening to them and then I'm writing stuff down. Like, that's typically what I'm doing. I'm taking notes on what they're saying.
Well, I know you're doing that. I guess, what I like if Melina walks in the room and she asks you a question, does it completely throw you off?
No, I'm actually like, I'm pretty good at focusing on what, yeah, no, I don't usually get thrown off on stuff like that, yeah.
Okay. That's a good thing. Yeah.
I don't think I would ever do like a super serious debate with like a bunch of distractions in the background. That seems like a bad idea. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would be. Trying to think. Yeah, no, it's something I'll email you later.
Okay. Anything else or?
No, I think it's pretty good. For the most part. Yeah, I'll take a look at stuff and let you know what I think on things. I'll shoot you an email for a little bit else that you might be interested in. And
okay, people keep asking me. I don't. Am I aware of this case, guys? Are we talking about this about the FedEx hostage thing? What was?
You are aware of it.
What was this?
You commented on that. Oh man, actually, that was.
How long ago was this?
I can't remember. It's about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks. I can't remember.
Wait, holy shit.
That was you actually talked to somebody about that. They were saying that you were talking to a chick and she was saying she felt that the police were responsible by escalating the situation and that they should have never surrounded him.
Was this the one where they were shooting is this the one where they were shooting in traffic? Yeah,
it was that one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I'm not super aware of it. I haven't read any debrief or anything or haven't even looked at the news.
Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, you finish. You said.
What? So you have law enforcement training, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a firearm?
I don't personally. I will eventually when I make a little more money.
Do you have one that's issued to you by like the department or anything?
No, the correctional officers don't get one.
Okay.
To take home.
Then. Okay. So okay. Whew, I was gonna ask you a question. If you didn't know it, I was gonna roast the fuck out of you. Do you happen to know like the 4 golden rules?
Yeah, the 4 golden rules.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Don't point your muzzle at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Yep.
Backstop and beyond.
Yep.
Always treat it as if it's loaded, and the golden rule: keep your finger off the trigger.
Yes. Okay.
Shoot.
So the third one that you said, backstop and beyond. Why do so many fucking cops open fire in fucking public areas when it seems like you're not at a point where you absolutely have to do that? What the fuck?
Other than that one, I haven't necessarily I have to look at that one in particular. Most of them don't seem to be in public enough to where they have to worry too much about backstop and beyond. But so. Remember I said there was a priority of life?
Yeah.
So if that guy had already opened fire, in order now it's because he opened fire and there's other people in protection that we need to protect, it's take him out as soon as possible.
I would understand that. So I'm normally I'm very sympathetic towards, believe it or not, I'm pretty sympathetic towards cops in certain situations where it's if a guy flashes a weapon, then fuck it, even if you don't know it's real, of course you have not even a half second. You have less than that sometimes, like 300 milliseconds to make a decision on what to do, or you're dead. I feel like I think in that FedEx one though, I don't know if that guy had shot anybody, and it's like sometimes there are so many shots fired, and it's like the collateral. Holy shit!
Right.
But yeah.
So actually, we could talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go off on first the that idea of de-escalation techniques.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's needed in order to start a de-escalation technique, which would be negotiations, is you need to contain them. So you can't leave, because if he walks away, he's just going to walk away, keep doing whatever he was doing. You didn't stop anything.
Sure. And then could go on to hurt somebody else instead of you getting him under your control. Sure.
So say you even managed to start communicating, but you didn't contain him. There's nothing stopping him again from just leaving in the middle of communication. And now you're diverting resources where they don't need to be. The so many shots one, that one is more, it really just works like once lethal force is authorized, like once the criteria has been met, there's no difference between one bullet and the whole clip. Does that make sense? Like, you met lethal force, you're not going to stop shooting to check to see if he fell.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I guess I can understand.
You're going to unload your clip. Hopefully your partner still has a couple more clips and is going while you reload right next to it. Cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that, I guess. It's just sometimes the shooting in public is like a big trigger.
No, yeah. And then that's always the thing. It's like, why didn't they just shoot him once? You don't necessarily know if you hit him in that one. So it's a lot easier to do that than a tactical reload in the middle of a fight. Well, you know the difference between tactical reload and a empty one, or no?
Do I know if... Wait, what? Say that again?
Oh, just because I know you shoot. I was saying, do you know the difference between like the tactical reload and a regular one? Like when you empty your clip?
The difference between a tactical reload and a normal reload.
Like, well,
I'm trying to think of what that could even mean. No, what is it? What is a tactical reload?
So a tactical reload is, say you shot 5 and you saw him go down, so you managed to stop. You now have 5 less in your magazine. There's no current threat, so I'm going to take this time now to pop that magazine out, put in a fresh one, so that's a full round plus 1. The automatic reload is an immediate action drill. You've practiced that to the point where you really fast, as soon as your thing goes to slide lock, you're going to hit it, drop it, and as it's sliding in, pop in a new one, lock and load.
Oh, okay. So tactical reload is just ejecting a mag that still has some rounds left in it and then putting it in a mag. Oh, okay.
But it takes a little bit more thought. It's not immediate. It doesn't become reactionary. Whereas if you're in the middle of the regular fire, it's a more reactionary thing. So you should, if you're trained and good at the gun, you're going to do that faster than you would a tactical.
Yeah.
So that's even more reason to just keep unloading until you know it's clear.
Sure.
Let's see. There was that. Yeah, no, that's pretty much those two right there. Once you make lethal force authorized, it's just authorized. So there's really not much discrimination between 1 bullet and 18. And there's there is a point, I think, where there is, but that's more for a court to decide.
Oh, here's a case that I thought that the police were just completely and totally fucked. It was the worst thing ever. I'm not as familiar with the FedEx, and people were saying he's shooting out the back of the van, so maybe if in that case, I could definitely see lethal force being used. Okay, something that I'm way more familiar with. Do you remember the Ben Shaver thing?
Describe it.
Guy was like kneeling in a hole. Yeah,
that one. That's so I get why they were cleared, but I feel like the guy who was in charge of that totally messed up. The one issuing the commands.
The guy issuing the commands was like, yeah, holy shit.
None of those commands should have been standard practice. Like, I don't think they are. But I don't know. Also, like, where is it? Yeah, it's also hard too because it's SWAT. SWAT's a little different. Yeah, basically those commands were just messed up.
Gotcha. Okay.
I get why the shots were considered good, and like being because I don't think the guy giving command trigger, so it's just like unfortunate for all of them. I know the background behind it was that was only like 2 weeks after the Vegas shooting.
It might have been, yeah.
Yeah, it was really close to that one, and the phone call they got going in was that there was a man.
There was a guy with a rifle, yeah.
Rifle pointing it out of his hotel room. So, like, I mean, you're probably even looking at guys experiencing levels of PTSD responding to that. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they were the same guys that responded to the first one.
Oh, really? Sure. But, okay.
Yeah, no, things like that surrounding containment first are things that I think are fine and probably people should know. I feel like law enforcement right now keeps a little too many of their cards hidden, so to speak. So, like, I don't know if you've ever heard the Sandy Hook conspiracies.
Which ones?
I don't even remember who, but I had seen
Alex Jones is the one that says it like a false flag or anything, but yeah.
I might have been Alex Jones. I don't remember. I remember seeing one back like early college. And one of the things that they pointed out was that no ambulances, no response could get to the school. That's standard practice.
What do you mean?
Like, if there's ever an incident and the police are involved, they're going to set up 2 perimeters. And if there's, say, like a school shooting sort of thing, they're going to have the ambulance come to a spot where they will bring victims to.
Oh, so you wouldn't let an ambulance or a fire truck like break the perimeter. You would move people in and out towards that. Oh, okay.
Exactly. But that's something that nobody knows. Nobody gets told on how police are going to handle those scenarios. So they're totally confused and left to speculate. And most people, most departments have a policy where you just can't talk to the public.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else?
Oh, that was a pretty good one. Anything else that your chat said, or?
Do you have a someone just asked, do you have a psychologist on site for the negotiator?
So that's like a optional role. Depends on
how big
the psychologists around. No, not how big, because unfortunately we don't pay them for it. It's got to be a labor of love on their end.
Oh, damn! Really?
Yeah.
Why?
So it's an option. Because they usually wouldn't be the state's employee. Like, the state doesn't have a spot just for that, or somebody that like they're not. It's like a lot of legislation problems, but they're not funded by the emergency operations unit.
Damn.
So to go to our trainings, to come out for us, they would have to be doing it because they genuinely and they've got the free time.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. No, it'd be nice if we could have certain ones on standby.
Yeah, I would think so, but
right. Even a lot of things like police lawyers are really bad. That's why a lot of agencies just settle out of a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are clean and good on there and that they just can't argue very well because they don't get good enough lawyers.
Do you think in general, police should be required to wear body cams?
Personally, I say sure, why not? I think it's fine. I mean, also, what was it? Oh, there's a Roswell where you're saying somebody said that the police refused to wear a body cam, but the first state that passed it, it wasn't the police. The ACLU said it was an infringement on the public's right to privacy.
Huh.
So that wasn't the police who said no. That was originally the police who said yes. I think the bigger problem in it is the legislation that goes on in the pork belly. There was a state that also got it passed that worked. It was just more, they have to wear the body cameras, but they're supposed to hit it before they go to an incident or anything.
Oh, well, yeah, you wear the body cams, but you don't activate them or they don't start until like 20 seconds after something has happened or some shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but the cost on it is ridiculous. So it was like, if you read the like bill on what the company's paying, it's like the first year was $30 a month per camera. And then after 1 year, it jumps up to like $300 a month.
Yeah, that's what I've read. So I was pro. Well, I think I still am, like massively like pro body cams and everything. But I'd gotten a couple emails from people that were either in law enforcement or law enforcement adjacent, and they said that part of the problems is that in some districts it gets really expensive to do the storage of like all the information and then to run everything. Like this is like you're talking about expanding like a massive level of like tech infrastructure that a lot of especially smaller police departments just don't have. That these are people that still use like old fucking tech like Windows 95 and shit on their computers and stuff.
Yeah, no, I like if there was an infrastructure for it, then it'd be perfect. I think that's really the only argument against it.
Yeah.
Other than that, other than people who don't want their stupidity getting out there also. Because they're
one of the things that I really liked about the body cams, when you like people always act like body cams are to protect us from the police, body cams protect us from the police. Body cams also protect police a lot too, because like I've seen a couple things that where the way that the officer's behaving was like exemplary, or where a person was trying to fuck an officer. I remember one video where officer had a body cam on, he was back at the precinct or whatever, and he is listening in on this girl in the bathroom saying like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna say that he touched me and then they'll let me go or whatever. She's like full on caught on camera, but the officer had like the entire encounter with the girl from start to finish on camera and even had a recording of her saying that she was gonna do that. It was like in those cases it seems really nice that like the body camera would like benefit, you know, multiple parties.
Most police officers say there's a few bad apples that everybody focuses on, and I pretty much like agree with that. I think body cameras would protect more police than it would hurt.
Well, hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. I mean, I'd like to believe so.
Yeah, of course, yeah. If that's not true, then we have...
then we have a problem.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
What was that? Was that my phone? Yeah, it was. Oh, it's just low battery.
Oh.
Yeah. What else? Oh. ACAB.
Oh, fuck. That's dumb. I don't even believe in that, so... But go for it.
No, it is. But... just real quick, why does everybody have a problem with the cops when we're only enforcing what the legislation branch decided?
Well, the argument is that if you recognize that the police institution is a corrupt institution that furthers a systemic divide between classes or races, that by you participating in that of your own volition, you are necessarily furthering their agenda, would be the argument. So, like, if you know the cops are racist, you know the cops are fucked, you know the cops are an institution of capitalists to just fuck over the population, when you go and get a job with them, you're basically, like, throwing your lot in with them. So you're equally culpable as any legislator would be, because you're there enforcing the legislation. That would be the argument.
Yeah, I get the argument, but I feel like there's no accountability put on the legislation.
No, they do. Like, they hate the legislators, too.
Okay, I haven't heard that. I've only heard the cops part, so I haven't heard the actual hate on the legislation.
Oh, no.
Because, I mean, you just have to change legislation to change everything else. So, which, that's something that gets dealt with in prison a lot.
Yeah.
A few, random, but like, what is it? New Mexico cannot afford the medicine for all their inmates. Especially because prisons have to provide the Hep C cure, and since there's no clean needle program or anything like that, anybody who gets cured just gets it again in a week.
Oh, damn. There's not a vaccine against like hepatitis C or anything, I guess?
There's only a cure, not a vaccine.
Okay. What does the cure involve? How is it just like a shot?
It's like a 6 month, like a once a month for 6 month pill, I think, or 3 months.
Oh, damn.
And it's like $1,600 a pop.
Yikes. Okay. Well.
And then when you got everybody gets it, and then just continues to get it over again. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it sucks.
Yeah. But that's also one of those things where it's more like, just like as an example of when you change legislation branch, the other branch goes with it. It's not like they just said, screw it, we can't afford it, we won't do it. You know, there's still, I think they ended up getting a deal with the companies to basically be like a Netflix for pharmaceuticals. So they pay a subscription to constantly get everything they need.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. No, it was interesting. But crazy.
Yeah. Okay, fuck. I don't think I have anything else unless if you ever if you ever see like me having a discussion and you feel like I'm fucking it up or something, feel free to shoot me an email. We can chat about it anytime or whatever, yeah?
Yeah, I'll shoot you an email and then
okay, sorry.
What's up?
One more. I just keep seeing weird questions in chat. What do you think there is a movie that shows particularly like a particularly good hostage negotiation?
I still still have to watch The Negotiator.
Oh fuck! I don't even think I've seen it. Okay.
It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it.
Oh well, damn.
Anyway, yeah, I've heard good things about that movie, but I don't know from the clips that I've seen, it's not necessarily true.
Okay.
Like one of the things that he talks about is like, you don't want me thinking about death. Well, depending on the subject, I might want you thinking about the mortality situation you got yourself in.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Well, hey, I really appreciate the conversation. Feel free to shoot me an email if there's ever anything else you want to shout about, okay?
Cool. All right.
All right,
Later.
cool. Thanks a lot. Bye.
You shouldn't fucking tweet about it if you don't know anything about the fucking issue.